Hey, this is Jon Bokenkamp. You are listening to the Blacklist Exposed on Golden Spiral Media.
It's the Season 3 wrap-up show. Hello, Blacklist fandom, and welcome to the Blacklist Exposed. I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson, and along with talking about Season 3 as a whole on this episode, we also chat with the big man himself, Mr. Jon Bokenkamp. He's the guy that runs El Show. Show notes and other intel for episode 58 of the Blacklist Exposed can be found at theblacklistexposed.com.
We've got a lot to cover on today's show, but first, apparently the Cabal was against us this year, as the Blacklist Exposed was not, I repeat, not nominated.
Not a finalist.
Not a finalist. We were nominated.
Our fans did nominate us.
Yes, true. Not a finalist this year in the TV and film category. That's a different category than last year. We greatly appreciate every one of you that did take up the charge to submit a nomination on our behalf. It is very much appreciated. But this was the first year that the TV and film category were the same, so it made the category just a little bit more competitive this year.
Doubly competitive, I would say.
Yes.
But all is not lost because we know that you fans are awesome and love and support both Troy and myself. We hope that you will come to our aid, basically, because my TV and film podcast, The Hollywood Outsider, was a finalist. Sorry, not just nominated, was a finalist for People's Choice Award, which is like Best Picture. So I desperately need your help. Troy also was a finalist for the Packers Fan Podcast, his sports show.
Yes.
And even if you're a Bears fan, I think you'd appreciate it. So what you can do, please, if you really want to support us, we would greatly appreciate it, is to vote for these shows. You can vote once a day for 2 weeks beginning May 29th, 2016.
Yes, there are some other shows that we would like you to vote for as well that are friends of ours and also fans of the Blacklist. They listen to this show and are part of you, the community. So if you can support them, just head over to noodle.mx, that's M as in Mary, .mx/podcast awards. That website has a full slate of shows that we hope you will help us support by casting, again, your daily vote beginning May 29th. Again, every day vote at noodle.mx/podcast awards. We thank you very much in advance.
And if all those shows are too much, just the two really is cool.
Really,
whatever you can do.
Yeah, definitely the two. Definitely.
Whatever you can muster. All right, so it would be huge for both of us, for Troy and I. We would love to take home a trophy. We work very, very hard on all the podcasts that we do, and we're very proud of them. So thank you for your support, whether you do or you don't. Thank you for your support. We have appreciated it. Now, enough of pimping ourselves. Let's talk about Season 3. It is over. We did discuss the finale at length. So if you want to listen to basically any breakdown of any specific episode, they're all there. And in fact, I think you've even added Season 1 completely now, right? From the first season of the Blacklist, so the entire series is there now?
I have. So if you are like some of the fandom that has already begun their summer early, you can do all 67. That's a lot of Blacklist. 67 episodes. Watch them and listen to all 67 plus episodes of the podcast at the same time. That would be epic.
Now I'm confused because this is number 58 of the Blacklist Exposed, but you've also got Season 1. What did you number those? What did you call them? Just episode names?
Yeah, so those are labeled in the feed if you look for it as BLTT versus BLE. So if you're looking in iTunes or the podcast app, our podcast app, the Blacklist Exposed in the iOS and Google Play Store, you can download that, of course. If you see BLTT, that is the show pre-Aaron that we did on a TV Talk Network.
Yeah, I don't want to say it was before. It's like PA. It's like pre-awesome is what I would go with. But, the other guy was very good, too. They're just like shorter episodes, and it was like 20 minutes or something like that. It's not when we just rambled forever.
Yeah, we had to keep them concise for the morning commute, so they're much shorter, much more to the point. Probably didn't go as deep. We got a little bit deeper towards the end of Season 1 because of the way things were playing with the Berlin saga. So yeah, if you want to go back, watch Season 1, listen to those. They are up in the feed for your enjoyment. So we have a complete Blacklist mythology. And as one of the listeners, Tori, pointed out, the mother theory comes up in episode 13.
Really? So you started this in the first season, this stupidity?
Yes.
That's stupid. I mean, that's awesome. That's cool that you came up with that insane theory like so long ago, and you just won't let it die.
Well, and the imposter theory, I think, comes up right away in episode 2.
that theory is like Weekend at Bernie's, man. It's just like you're just carrying that corpse around forever and ever, just kicking it around the beach.
Even though it's dead, it still lives.
Oh, God, I wish it would just put a bullet in it already. Somebody figure out something on that writing staff to put that thing down. I would appreciate it. And hey, if you've never listened, Troy thinks Red is actually Liz's mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Red is Katerina with a gender reassignment surgery.
Did drown in that ocean, and then she came out a woman. Yeah, that's the magical theory.
Magical jellyfish out there.
Moron. You dumb. All right, so let's talk about season 3. Overall, how do you think season 3 compared to the previous 2 seasons?
I still hold a special place in my heart for the first season, only because it was very exciting. It was new. The Blacklisters were interesting, and it was something that you hadn't heard before. But the first half of season 3, I was really excited about because it felt very much like season 1. We had these very interesting Blacklisters like the Djinn, like Marvin Gerard. We had the one with Ariat Kane, who ended up being a Blacklister that we didn't even realize was a Blacklister because we thought it was the sniper guy. Mm-hmm. Very, very reminiscent of season 1 in the first 8 episodes of this season. Even Kings of the Highway was enjoyable because of Jilly. I think that when we switched the transition then into the back half of season 3, it was enjoyable, but it was enjoyable in a completely different way. So all in all, I think season 3 definitely stacks up as probably one of the better seasons. Definitely ahead of season 2, probably equal to season 1.
I'm going to go with, I liked it probably best of all 3 seasons, honestly. I will give a little bit of a, nod of the hat to the first season, just because I thought it was cool how they established everything and they got you rooting for a character. And there were several really cool and fun episodes, but it was more procedural the first season. And I am much more a serialized guy. I like once a storyline really starts to merge onto serialized storytelling. And I think it got a little heavier in season 2, and season 3 has been nothing but serialized storytelling. There are a few standalone episodes, but overall I think it was just serialized. And for me, that's how I prefer my television. If I'm going to watch TV, I want something that goes episode to episode, tells one big story, and we keep going forward. To me, I like forward momentum. I like evolving characters. I like evolving show history. I love mythology. I do get concerned whenever things get a little too complicated because I'm an X-Files fan, and if you've ever been an X-Files fan, you know exactly why that bothers me. It's always dangerous ground, right? Because the more convoluted it gets, the more risk you have of losing your audience, of implying things that don't make sense, or adding story elements that never get payoff, that sort of thing. So I'm very, very, I tread lightly on too much mythology, and I think they've got just enough because they seem to have the mythology down to a point. There are a couple issues they step on a little bit, but it's nothing drastic. And I really enjoyed how season 3 ended up coming around, because when we talked about way back when it was announced that Megan Boone was pregnant, one of my biggest concerns, and I stated this very publicly, wasn't like quiet about it, right? I was pretty honest about it.
You're pretty honest about it.
Yeah. And I'm still honest about it. Don't like babies in TV shows. I've never seen a TV show where a baby added to a storyline. I haven't, in my perspective, from all the television I've watched, babies usually drag a storyline down. Now, they played it very well. I think there were a few too many cutesy moments, things that I didn't care for in that respect. I didn't like that. I'm not going to lie. And way too much Liz and Tom. I'll say it until the day I die. I just don't like them as a couple. I'm fine if they work together. I just don't want them to be a couple. And now they're referring to them as married. I don't recall them ever actually finalizing the wedding. Did you?
They did not finalize the wedding at the church before the shootout began. So
what the hell is that? Why is it, that's my husband? That's my wife. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
You can't just say it.
You guys were legally divorced at the start of season 2.
Guess what? Jennifer Lawrence, she's my wife. Yeah, I said it. It must be true. So there's a little too much of that, but I think the way that they handled Megan Boone's pregnancy in terms of how you write her off the show I thought was pretty well handled. I thought that was actually very cool and really duped a lot of people. If I wasn't 100% sure that she would still be on the show, I probably would have bought that. It's one of those things where we always say on TV, unless you see them in a body bag, they're not really dead, especially any kind of serialized television. And we saw her in a body bag. So a lot of people were duped by that. And you and I saw that from fans of the show who couldn't believe. They were hoping she was alive, but she was gone for so long. They were like, well, she must actually be dead. And I think they pulled it off rather well. And it was better than what I expected the storyline was going to be, which is a kidnapping. I think that's kind of what you and I, we had talked about what the options were. It was basically like fake her death or kidnap her. And we thought once they faked her death earlier in the season, they wouldn't do that again, which is probably what they wanted us to think. And we thought they were definitely going to go with kidnapping. They went the other way. So that's pretty cool. I think it worked out well. And they haven't, it isn't so much baby that it's been distracting. And the moments that the baby has been involved haven't been a negative factor for me. I do have concern going forward into season 4, what's going to happen with Agnes, but so far I'm okay with that. I'm still not on board babies make TV better, but I think they've handled it as smartly as they could given the circumstances. And it seems like they made a conscious choice. Well, why walk away from it? This is very much a show about parentage and fathers and daughters and things like that. In my opinion, not to piss off any shippers, just my opinion. And I think it plays into that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And the one great thing about it was that in the season finale, we actually got to see their makeshift house inside of a warehouse where they're actually taking care of Agnes and making it look like she's in a normal room. So it at least gives you some credibility, I guess, at that point to say, look, someone is watching the kid. It just happens to be Reddington's guys while Tom is out doing whatever spy stuff he's doing. So that at least gives you some closure that the kid's just not laying at home and Gina's taking care of it or something, because that would be creepy.
I do get a little bit of concern that we're going to have a Walking Dead issue, because in The Walking Dead, and I've said this before, there's a baby on the show, but you never see the baby, and you never know who the hell's watching the baby. I mean, they just hand that kid to anybody. And I'm worried that would have to happen, because I can't see Liz just sitting there holding the baby all the time, right? She's going to have to get out in the field. She's going to be part of the action. I mean, that's the kind of show it is. So how do they handle that? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? I'm lost.
Well, and that's going to all depend on how Red and Liz figure out what they're going to figure out when season 4 begins, because I don't think Liz really wants Red taking care of Agnes. And now Tom and Red have already kind of made a deal that said, hey, if you help me get to Kirk, you can be in Agnes's life. So we got one parent that says Red's in, one parent that says Red's out. That'll be an interesting dynamic and storyline to deal with as well.
No, I don't think either parent really made that deal. I mean, Tom faked his own. I mean, he escaped himself. So he's not going to honor any deal with Red. He wants Red out of the picture just as much as Liz does at this point.
But Red told him about his mommy.
Yeah, I don't really think that did a whole lot. I just don't. So overall, big fan. In terms of the 3 seasons, I think 3 is my favorite, just because it's the most serialized of the show, and I see a lot of forward momentum, and I see a lot of pieces being put in place. And I like that they are getting away from the procedural aspect, but I know a lot of people are not fans of that. Is there somewhere where you stand on that? Because I know you love serialized television too.
I think that what I'm missing is the interesting characters. Like, we talked about the Djinn a lot during that episode, and how just out of left field that gender reassignment twist was to that episode.
I loved that though.
Yeah, and it was still in the serialized nature, because you had this whole, we're on the run, we got to exonerate Liz, it's part of the plan to get this journal or the page from the journal in order to make that happen, but you still had a really interesting blacklister that had the twist, and I think that's what really made that episode stand out, where in the back half of season 3, you really just kind of had some satellites, and you kind of introduced Scotty, who was kind of cool, but it really was just the serialized story. There wasn't a really big, shocking blacklister twist. And I think that twist, that the Djinn episode or the Stewmaker episode, where it adds to the mythology but is still a cool case of the week at the same time, I think is what some people are clamoring for season 4.
Yeah, I would definitely. I would like to get back to some of the creepier blacklisters.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I would definitely like, was it The Alchemist?
Yep.
And a few of the other ones. I would really like to get back to some, and don't get me wrong, I like some of the fun ones and the quirky ones, but some of the sadistic evil ones, I feel like we were lacking this season. Not that the story was lacking. It just, there's a few, I wish there's a few more that I considered really despicable threats.
Yeah, things like the Cypress Agency, where they're doing the mommy farm. And then they were doing things like the Kingmaker, training assassins. I think some of those things were very interesting, and it still applied to the serialized nature of the show. There were pieces in there that gave you clues, like Stewmaker right away, right? Gave you the whole serialized, it was the entry of the photo of, was it Jennifer, right? Berlin's daughter? There's Jennifer Red's daughter. I forget. But you get
I don't remember.
But you get the picture.
Isn't that your job, Troy? You're supposed to remember all this.
I know. It was so long ago. I haven't done my 67 episode rewatch yet.
Are you going to do that again before the next season?
I might not watch all 67. I'll probably scan through season 1 since I did season 1 last year. But I will probably rewatch season 2 and 3 before the show starts back up in the fall.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, as long as we can get some creepy people that also add to the mythology, I'm all in for that because I love the creepy stuff.
How did you feel about how the Liz storyline was handled?
I thought it was great. It pulled the wool over the cast size too. For those of you that haven't read the article, Bokenkamp actually said that when they shot the scene in Cuba, it was actually shot as a dream sequence originally. And so when Aaron mentioned on the season finale show that it looked like Liz's hair was longer when she was sitting in front of Kirk, it's because it actually was, because they did shoot it at separate times.
Oh, so I got one right.
You got one right.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was still, I think, pregnant at the time they shot the Cuba episode, and then obviously post-delivery for the Kirk episode, because it was shot as a dream sequence. It was her on her quote-unquote deathbed thinking about what her perfect life could have been, and that's how they spun it to the cast, so that way the cast didn't know that Liz was actually coming back.
So they actually didn't know that she was going to be back?
Like, well, James knew, and John knew, and Liz knew, but yeah, a lot of the cast members didn't know.
That actually surprises me. I didn't think that would happen. Huh. Very cool.
Eventually they had to know, obviously, to play their characters, but initially I don't think they knew out of the gate.
Did he say if they knew that we would figure it out?
Not necessarily. I don't remember.
They thought they were going to pull the wool over our eyes. We're just too perceptive.
They do give credit. I think Blacklist Nation Blacklist fandom are very good, keen watchers. No pun intended.
This means I see what you did there.
But yeah, we pay attention. So I think that most people that watch the show the right way, the right way is not the right way to say it, but in a scrutinizing way, would very much pick up on the fact that there was no way she was going to be dead.
Obsessive, I think, is the word you're looking for.
Possibly.
Yeah, obsessive. It's all right. I think we're all obsessive. If you listen to this, we're probably obsessive, and us talking are definitely obsessive because we do this. So, yeah, it's fair. It's fair. I don't mind labels. Welcome aboard, label. What character do you think received the most expanded role this season? Who got more character depth than anybody else?
You mean besides
outside of Red? Let's take Red and Liz out of it.
I was going to say outside of Tom Keene, because it was the Tom Keene show all season.
I didn't say outside of Tom Keene. So is that the character you believe?
Well, clearly he's got his own spinoff, so I would say he's the most expanded. But I think Aram's character, Amir Arison, got a lot more expansion from what we knew of Aram previously to what Aram brought forth this year. I mean, the whole grave scene with Red, the toe-to-toe with Red at Dom's house, the comedy, the smoking the pot, the making sure she's alive in the glass box. I think Aram, as the character, grew a lot from season 2 to season 3. Tom is still the same character, so even though his role expanded, I think he's still the same person, same character, same dynamic, where I think Aram has moved into different territory.
Yeah, I would agree that there are some moments where I thought it was a Tom Keene show. And, part of me thinks they threw that up just because Liz is gone and they needed a player to step up that could be in the field and do some of the stuff that Liz would normally do. And if that's the case, fine. If it's not the case, I'm not on board the Tom should be like number 2 chair to Red in the show. I like that he gets his own spinoff. I think that dynamic works. I really prefer Red and Liz, and I know some people feel differently. And okay, good for you. I'm not one of those. I feel like, to me, Liz and Red are the center of the show. So while I think Ryan plays the role great, and I think a spinoff will be fun to watch, I want to see Liz in that seat, not Tom. I think Tom should be just like the other players, where they're supporting players, and that's it. When it comes to the expanded role, I definitely think Aram's the guy. I think they discovered, through whether it be fan service or whether it be just the writers playing with the character some, they found that Amir could play a lot of different types of roles. And I think his character carries the most robust development of any other character. I think like he seems to play all gamuts of styles: dramatic, comedic, mysterious. I mean, I think he can play pretty much anything, is what I've seen. I've been very impressed with Amir's character. And I told you I even saw him in that movie before his movie Before the Sun Explodes. And he's got a very, very small role. But even that role is completely different than anything on the Blacklist. So I think he's a very strong character actor. And I really look forward to what they can do with him. His role has definitely been expanded. And I look forward to, like, season 4, even more of that. I think, he's a very talented actor who got a very small break, and the writers and the producers just realized, we got gold here. Let's give him more to do, and I think the more the merrier when it comes to Amir.
Agree 100%. Now, I would like to see expanded roles for, I think, some of Red's henchmen in this for season 2, because if they're going to have to go try to find Liz, it'd be great to see a lot more of Glenn, a lot more of Brimley, a lot more of Dembe.
A lot more Dembe.
I think that would be very interesting to see how the network actually works together. We kind of got a little bit of that when Glenn was trying to find Dembe, when Solomon had him held captive with Mr. Vargas in the early parts of season 3.
I'm kind of pissed that we never got a Dembe beats the ever-loving piss out of Solomon scene.
Could still be coming. You never know.
It could be, but it really seems like they're saving him for the spinoff.
Well, you got to remember,
because he ain't dead. He ain't dead.
Dembe and Solomon crossed paths in the jail, and Dembe said, "You'll get yours, later." In the way they looked at each other, right? And then he leaves the jail, and he immediately gets hired by Scotty. So then he's literally opposite sides of Dembe at that point. So Solomon isn't really in a place where Dembe can get to him. And at the time that Dembe can finally get to him, Tom shot him in the gut.
I'm just reminding anybody that might be on the writing staff. We need that scene. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care if he's been stabbed and left for dead. Good for Tom. He had that coming. But he needs an ass whooping from Dembe. You mess with a man's child and grandchild, right?
Right.
So, no.
Yeah.
You got an ass whooping coming, and I hope they give him an expanded role where he can, in an expanded way, beat his ass.
And remember, he did have a kid and a grandkid. That was way back at the beginning of season 3, lest we forget. Which means there still has to be like a Mrs. Dembe potentially out there too.
I can tell you from personal experience, it doesn't have to be a Mrs. Dembe.
She could be adopted, I suppose.
You can just not be married.
Well, everybody
you can just bounce, chicka, bounce, bounce, and then babies come out. That's how the magic happens.
But then it would still
your parents never have this talk with you?
Well, yeah, but there'd still be like a
son, you get
mom.
the ring, and you put the ring on, and then magically a stork delivers a baby. It doesn't actually work like that, Troy.
But there would still be a mom of the children.
So just not a Mrs. Dembe.
Right.
Just a lady that knew Dembe.
A lady that knew Dembe.
Yeah.
Or they're adopted, because everybody on the show is adopted.
Quote unquote Dembe's friend.
Liz is adopted. Tom's adopted. Dembe's adopted.
So everybody's adopted.
Everybody's adopted.
This whole show is a sterling endorsement for adoptions and how wrong they can go, because apparently everyone is a spy.
Yep.
Who knew? Anybody else that you want to see an expanded role for?
I was really excited at the beginning of the season for Wrestler's expanded role as taking over the task force. And then as the season wore on, Cooper comes back and Wrestler gets kind of diminished again. I still want to see Diego kind of break forth from the mold instead of the Mr. just doing his job, especially because he's in this place where you actually did bring back in season 3 the narcotic play in one scene, very small, that he still has this pill addiction problem. And
which scene?
It was like when Red comes and he's at Narcotics Anonymous, like in the first part of season 3. And so now that he's had this altercation where he had the gun to Red's head and decided to let him go ahead and shoot Kirk, and he has to deal with that and now deal with the fact that Liz is alive. Do they go back to this narcotics issue? Because anybody that's got that kind of emotional change going on in their life and is an addict, I think you have to address that story.
I don't. I absolutely don't. I mean, he wasn't addicted to like meth or heroin. He was addicted to painkillers. I think he can kick it and he'll be fine. So I don't need any more on that at all. I totally disagree with you on that, Troy. I would like a more expanded role, a little bit more diverging from the straight-laced Mr. Doing His Job. I think just because of the roles that they have played in breaking the law and willingly going against protocol. So to me, I would like to see more diversions from that. But the whole drug storyline, I never want to see it again. Never want to see it. If there's a garbage can where you can put that storyline, drop it in there. Drop it in there and hightail it out.
I'm not saying I want to see that storyline. I'm just saying that they could
Feels like you said it.
Well, they could go back there is what I'm saying, because he's in a place mentally where he could go back there. And that could open up a dynamic between him and Samar because of what happened with them in season 3, that maybe she has to bring him out of the addiction, or Liz comes back and Liz gets him out of the addiction, and then Liz and Wrestler finally get together like we were joking about at the end of season 1. So there's a story there that's
still
potential.
for it, by the way. Still for it.
Definitely still for it.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they're brother and sister.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Don't make it weird, though.
Because there was that picture, that one picture.
I mean, if they choose to bring that storyline back, that's cool, because I need a moment to get snacks and make fruit drinks, maybe a margarita. That would be fine. That's about what I would use that time for. I just don't want it ever to come back again. I think they realized it wasn't working, which is why they dropped it.
But yet they came back to it. That was the thing that was weird, because they came back to it in the Kenyon family when he finds the codeine in the bottom of the church cabinet.
But it's very, very minor. It wasn't like played up again. It's like that is such a TV cliche, and I'm glad they got away from it. I'm fine with it. If I never see it again, I'm good. I do think Mojan could use some more arcs. I don't know. It's really hard when you have so many people in the cast to expand everybody's role without making it Grey's Anatomy. And I don't want that. I mean, I don't think most fans want that. They still want that mystery, that action, that intrigue. But I would like to see a few stories focused on her character, because I think she's got an interesting past that never really gets explored other than the one episode with her brother. So I would like more of her past history to see where she came from and what brought her to where she is.
Wouldn't it be interesting if Red, having to deal with Kaplan, can't focus on going to find Liz, and so Samar is the one that actually goes on the hunt for Liz. And that's how you get an expanded role for her.
That would be cool. And I also want her and Aram to hook up. In more, even if it's in a Ford commercial, I don't care. Like, they could be in the back of a Ford Escape, and I'd be fine with that.
Look at all the room that's back here for your groceries and other things.
Exactly. Whatever it takes. And she's got to be the aggressor, because that's the way it would work. He's obviously never going to make the move, so she's got to handle it.
And
I'm good with that.
Would she be able to handle it if Aram made the move is the question? Would that just totally like, whoa, what happened there? You role reversal.
Could he handle it? I think his head would explode. I don't know what he would do. As a character, I just think his head would explode.
Right.
As a mirror, he'd be like doing a fast clap and going, yay! Okay, who do you what do you think you weren't a fan of this season? Like, what didn't you like? You don't have to be hypercritical. Just any storylines, plot lines that you weren't a big fan of, or things that didn't work for you overall.
Kings of the Highway was probably the one letdown episode, because
that's the Justified episode, right?
Yeah, that was the in the woods or whatever.
Hillbillies in the woods.
Yeah. I mean, as fun as Jilly was and everything, there just wasn't. It just seemed like from where we were in the last couple of episodes leading up to that episode as the fall finale, it just kind of fell a little flat. Just wasn't as exciting going into the fall finale. I expected a bigger cliffhanger. So if there was a downer for the season, that would probably be the one.
Mine was just, well, you know what mine was. Knowing that the baby was going to stay. That was mine. So far, it hasn't affected my enjoyment of the show, which I can honestly say, and I said, I was very, very worried about that. It hasn't as of yet. I think they've done a very solid job with keeping the baby involved, but not overwhelming the show with cute baby stuff. Like, hey, let's all go get diapers. I mean, I'm waiting for the magic nanny moments to kick in. And so far, they're avoiding them. So as long as they can keep doing that, I can still enjoy it. But you also don't want to run the risk of the audience going, who is watching that damn kid? You don't want that either. So if they can find that fine line, maybe it'll be a great storyline going forward. Maybe it'll be a fun dynamic to add to the tension. I don't know. But it has worked out. But they have, Liz and Tom, the fact that they didn't get married, which made me a very happy guy. Because I told you, I don't know if I said it on the show. Honestly, we've done so many, I can't remember. But I was really terrified they were actually going to get married. Because I'm like, God, we're never going to get rid of this story. Because I'm not a fan of them together, never will be. It's just, I'm just one of those guys. Once you try to kill a woman, I think you're branded a jackass. There's no redemption for me. So, and it's a personal thing. So it's not going to change much no matter what they do with the character. But I still like Tom as a badass. I just don't want him with Liz. That's it. And I've said that numerous times. So I definitely don't want to jump on that and keep kicking that wagon.
I suppose we should also call it that we weren't fans of the marketing PR engine as well about the spinoff.
Oh man, I'm still mad about that. Yeah. When you talked to John, because Troy interviewed John, we'll have the interview here in a second. Did that come up at all?
Nope, I didn't bring it up. I wasn't going to pour salt in the wound.
See, you wimped out?
I totally wimped out.
You chicken. Oh.
The conversation never lent itself that way. It's a very interesting conversation. He talks about a lot of things.
I would have asked. I'm just saying, I've got pants on. I would have asked, you know what I'm saying?
It's not his fault.
No, it's your fault. I'm blaming you.
Well, I know,
I'm blaming John. He's going to answer. I'm sure he answered every question you asked. You didn't ask the right one, son.
I didn't want to ask him something that wasn't his fault. It's not his fault that people leaked it from other places.
How are we going to know who to blame? Huh?
It's over. It's done with.
I want to know who's the insider at NBC who got that information out, because I don't think it was a press release. I think it was just it got out.
Yeah, it might be
that Famke Johnson is going to be Tom's mom, so we can every time we see her, we're like, "That's Tom's mom. That's Tom's mom." Which does take away some of that tension when the reveal is giving you like, "Oh my God, I didn't see that coming." We totally did.
And Tawny Cypress and Eddie Gathegi are going to be on the show as well.
Yeah, so his death didn't really do anything. You're like, well, he's not going to die. It would be a cool throw, though. I mean, if he actually doesn't show up for the spinoff, like, oh yeah, he did die outside that truck. All right. Okay, so favorite episodes or moments. What are your favorite stuff?
Oh, the gin by far. I think it's probably one of my favorite. It almost I thought Stewmaker was great, and it held Stewmaker pretty high for the longest time. But the gin, I think, is probably one that's going to go down as the most interesting thing on television I've seen, because it was like totally didn't see it coming. It was like slapped upside the head, spun around 3 times, spit out pea soup. It was like, holy crap. Wow. That was just, I can't believe they went there.
Yeah. On reflection, because I'm a huge fan of Cape May. I thought that was a great episode.
Well, Cape May stands alone in its own tier. So you have to take Cape May out of the equation and just look at everything else, because that's obviously a different category.
So you're telling me what the rules are for how I see it? Is what you're telling me?
No,
I got to take Cape May out of it? You seem very bossy here, is what I'm saying.
You could say Cape May's awesome, but everybody's going to say Cape May was awesome. 95%.
There's a few people who didn't like that. Not because they didn't like that we got a whole episode of Red. It was just that for them, because I talked to some people that weren't fans of it, and it was because the tone is different. Everything is different about that episode. It is its own thing. It's not really a Blacklist episode. It's really mythology heavy. I mean, it feels like it's going to be an episode that's going to be deciphered and dissected for, the rest of the show's run. I think it's one of those episodes. So to me, it does stand apart in terms of you probably can't count it, but I would never say you have to not count it, because I'm not dictator Troy. You know what I'm saying? So you guys make your own decision. For me, I would remove it too, and Jen would be my favorite episode.
And I can remove it because I have insider information about the interview, which you guys will hear because we went into depth about the Cape May episode.
So once they hear it, it's not insider anymore.
Right. It's true.
Or they'll be insiders.
They will be insiders because they go into how the episode even came about in the first place.
And I haven't even heard it yet. So it might be phenomenal. I don't know. I mean, but it just feels like you're not asking the right questions. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying. It feels like you missed a big one. Who leaked all that information at NBC about the spinoff? That's what you should ask. Okay, what about moments? We're basically on the same page for episodes. What moments? Any particular moment that really struck you?
Friggivator was awesome.
Friggivator.
Yeah. Marvin Gerard with the pecan pies. It's like,
yeah, that's right.
Chewie's got the pies, and he just has a refrigerator in the back that doubles as an elevator. Thought that was pretty awesome. Of course, the talking about captaining a ship in a shipping container on a ship. That was also a fun one.
I still don't know if that was intentional, but it was beautiful.
Jilly in the, what do we have here? It was a great moment for me. I think those are the big ones. I mean, Agnes being born was kind of interesting. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up from my end.
I love the playlist thing is a running gag.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's been good. And the wedding playlist was great. And I love that so many people just, paused it so they could write all the songs down. And, I thought that was really fun and quirky.
I don't know anybody that did something like that.
Yeah, right. I love Samar's asides because her delivery is very deadpan. And her inflection doesn't change much. And that's who her character is. So whenever she gives a line, especially if she's throwing it back at Rustler or something, is usually hysterical. And I can't remember the exact lines off the top of my head, but basically where she's just basically spiting him because she's mad at him, for everything. I love those moments. Just love them.
Lines like, you weren't that good in bed.
Yeah.
Lines like, your dongle has been inserted.
And some of my other favorite moments are, and shippers and parental obsessive fans, they're basically three kinds of fans of the show, or theories of the show, which are, there is the Red and Liz shipping theory, which is that Red secretly loves Liz in a romantic way. There's the father-daughter bond where he loves her in some sort of father-daughter way. And then there's the other one, which is that he's ultimately using her for his own benefit, right? Those are the three main kinds of theories that are out there. And the
imposter theory.
That's kind of what that third one means. I mean, the third one ties in together. Like, for his own nefarious means. He's not actually Red Reddington, but he's using her for whatever.
Okay.
And he's somebody else, whatever the case is. So three kinds of theories. And I love the moments where they have, and according to John, the way I understand it, because you talked to him and he alluded to this to some degree, that they do recognize that there are so many theories out, and they do, I wouldn't say play with those because that sounds insulting to a degree, but they do tease different aspects, right? I love those moments where I can take it several different ways, because then I just know how the fans are going to react. And I know people get mad because it's not clearly defined, and sometimes I do too. But I love to see the internet explode because people start bickering over whatever their respective fan theory is. And I've been guilty of it. And they just get into it and it gets heated. And it's never I don't see people getting mean about it. I've heard people do. I haven't really witnessed that. But I love when people playfully banter about it, where they jokingly, just go back and forth. Like, yeah, you're nuts for thinking that they're hooking up, or that he wants to hook up with her. And you're nuts because you think that's her dad. God, we've already heard, I don't know how many times, not her dad. I just love how it makes people so passionate about a TV show. Because I've told you this a million times. When I watch a TV show, I never believe the characters are real people. They're actors playing a role, and you're just following the story. But a lot of people feel so passionately and so close to the TV show that I think they start taking them to heart, like how people are deciding how that relationship is. They take it very much to heart. They love the show. They're passionate fans, and I love those little moments in the episodes where it just creates that outburst. Because it's not often where the scenes can play multiple ways, and when they do, it's freaking hysterical.
You mean scenes like Red, I do love?
Yeah. Well, that was just so, man, and by not answering it and not finishing it, it could go different ways. Now, they always go on Twitter and answer what she was going to say was, I love you. Yeah, I always say, if it's not in the show, it doesn't count. And I firmly believe that. Don't care what they say on Twitter. I only care what I see on the show, because that's what counts. And that, to me, seems intentional. Like it was trying to be like, all right, play with this one, guys. I love those little moments. I love them.
It was great.
And also just really anytime Hasham is allowed to be a badass. It didn't happen as much this season, and I felt like we were really getting an arc when he and Solomon were going back and forth, and that kind of fizzled out, and we didn't get much Dembe in the second half of the season. I would like more of him. I've always said this. He's one of my favorite characters on the show, and if he's definitely the character I think could be expanded more. I just find him just invigorating to watch, and I would like more kick-ass moments because when he gets to beat somebody's ass, he's really good at it.
Well, and if you think of Dembe as almost like a son to Reddington, based on the fact that they were praying in Arabic at the box when he was about to die back in season 1, and then you get the Mombasa Qatar story and how he saved him as a boy and kind of brought him up into the network and everything. I really like then the scenes where Dembe is challenging Red, like at the campsite, and then talking in the car, and he's like, just shut up and drive, Dembe.
I forgot about that one. That's great.
So, I mean, those moments are great because if he can challenge a parental-like figure in that way, it also adds dynamic to then the parental-like status of the show for all of our other characters, mainly in Liz.
Do you think they would have, like, Red would have Dembe do anything or torture, like, Kaplan? Because of everything that happened?
No, I think Brimley's the true torturer, so he'd bring Brimley in to torture Kaplan if that was the case.
Okay, do you think he would do that to Kaplan? Because we didn't really mention Kaplan because she really became important in the last few episodes.
I think that is a story that will be fleshed out in season 4 because in one side of the coin, there was the difference between Mr. Gray, right? Mr. Gray, Newton Phillips in season 1. Mm-hmm. He was looking out for his family's best interest. They were going to hurt my family. I had to do it because they were going to hurt my family. Red kills Newton Phillips. In this case, Kaplan says, I was looking out for your best interests, Red, in trying to keep her safe. So I was still doing what you wanted me to do. And I think that may set a separate tone in the way how Red deals with Kaplan. I don't think Kaplan gets off scot-free, but at the same... Scott, get it?
But
yeah,
I got it.
I think that something is going to happen to her, whether she's either removed from the network or a sidestep, or maybe she has to actually go into the field because, again, she doesn't like the dead body part. She only likes the cleaning up part. She might have to actually go on the offensive to help get Liz back.
Did you see where she was holding Agnes that reminded her of Liz?
Mm-hmm.
I assume she was holding her as a baby?
At some point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, Red and Liz remain in the center of the show. Do you agree?
I agree 100%. They have to get back to that somehow. And I think that's the interesting part of season 4 is how do they get back to that, if they can get back to that. That's the question.
Do you think they can get back to the point where she confides in Red quite a bit? I mean, the one thing I will say, and some people were concerned that Liz flip-flops a lot. And I do think there is some validity to that. So I do hope that we don't do much of that in the 4th season. But I also think there's a lot of confusion on her part, a lot of emotional ups and downs. Then you throw in the pregnancy. I mean, there are some things that factor into that character and why that would happen. But do you think she can get back to the point where she trusts Red implicitly?
I guess it depends on if Kirk ends up really being daddy or not. Because if Kirk is dad, I don't see how she can ever trust Red again because Red then lied, we assume, because again, it could be Red thought he was dead, which would be telling the truth in Red's mind's eye. Red's mind's eye?
One of those, yeah. They all
like
work.
That.
Sure.
In which case he didn't lie because he thought he was dead. But if he's alive and Red knew about it from that file, then technically he did know, and she kind of accosted him in the post office right after the painting episode. I think it was Drexel or the one after Drexel. So at that point, I think it's hard for her to go back to Red and trust anything he says. But if Kirk ends up not being daddy, then absolutely she's going to come running back to Red and saying, you were right all along. My dad's dead. Oh.
Could I just say this is how much we want there to be different things and different theories, because we always say nobody ever says anything right on the nose. Kirk literally said, Masha, I'm your father. It's me. Like, I mean, he did everything but throw on a birth certificate. And we still were like, nope, nope, it's probably not her dad. Nope, can't be him. It's like, sometimes I think we're the problem.
We are absolutely the problem. And then we're just feeding these egomaniacs writing the show.
They're just like, what?
Thank you for giving me more story to play with.
You guys tell us to be very clear and to the point. So we gave you a line that says, hey, guess what? I am your dad. Like, here's our lineage. Here's a family tree. Here you go. Take it with you. Here's a snapshot of me and your mom on the beach. We're like, no. I didn't see any DNA results. No. Where's Maury Povich? Did he show up? Oh, there he is. They gave him too. Nope. Still ain't buying it. I mean, we're very hard to please.
Very, very hard to please.
Sometimes. All right. I think that moment has come. Do you agree that it's time to get into this interview?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're going to enjoy what Jon has to say here. We talk a lot about season 3 as a whole, kind of what the theme of season 3 was. We talk about the Cape May episode, obviously, the spinoff, but we also talk about the theories and the fans, and Jon actually asks me a few questions.
Well, that'll be interesting. And I said I was not able to be there. We had some scheduling ups and downs, and then it worked out that the interview could only be done the one day I had to go to a doctor's appointment because I injured myself coming back from vacation. I'm the only person in the world that goes to Yellowstone, hikes mountains, comes back, and then falls down running at home.
You forgot the part where you fought the bear like the Revenant and still survived and then tripped when you came home on a path.
Yeah, that happened. You want to hear real quick before we go into the interview? Because my vacation was in Yellowstone, and Yellowstone National Park, if you've never been, beautiful place. If you like the outdoors, the wildlife, or anything like that, or just love beautiful scenery, I mean, every picture looks like a portrait. It's just gorgeous out there. But the number one thing they tell you when you're going through is don't go up and take pictures with the animals. The only thing I ever saw every time I drove through is people going up to wild animals and trying to take pictures with them. Bears, bison, everything.
Like that crazy video I saw of a guy hanging out of his car taking pictures of bison on the side of the road.
Yeah. Well, worse than that, people are getting out of the car and I saw a lady, and I know some of our listeners don't care about this, but you can skip ahead a minute or two and we're straight to the interview, but I got to tell the story. There's a black bear and a cub, and I've backpacked for years, so black bear are fairly docile, but they'll be very aggressive if you come near their cubs because they're very protective and territorial. And people just walking up, acting like they're at a zoo, like there's bars between them, and there's nothing. They're walking like 10 feet away from a bear. I'm like, this thing could eat your face, and you think it's worth it so you can get your little snapshot and put it on Instagram. I've never seen anything like it. Like the whole time I drove through, I'm like, this is where natural selection is going to start right here. We're going to weed people out real quick. It's very, very exciting. Beautiful place. Definitely go. But what I would recommend is if once you get back, don't go for a run because then you'll trip over a root and you won't walk for roughly a week and a half. It sucks. It really sucks. All right, let's get into the interview. You don't want to hear about my misery anymore, or maybe you do because you don't like me. You like Troy better, which I don't appreciate. It really hurts my feelings. Let's go to the interview with the creator of the series, The Blacklist, Jon Bokenkamp. Take it away.
So we're here with Jon Bokenkamp, the creator of The Blacklist and now creator of The Blacklist Redemption. Thanks so much for coming back to the program, Jon, to talk about the end and possibly future of The Blacklist.
Absolutely. I love doing it. This is a blast talking to you guys. Thank you for having me.
So first question we have to ask, of course, have you been renewed yet for season 5?
Not that I know of, no. So season 4 is more than enough at the moment. So no season 5 yet.
Okay, sounds good.
Get those out of there right up front.
Exactly.
I like that.
Real first question. If you had to sum up season 3 in your mind in one word, what would that word be?
Emotional, I think. Just emotional. I'm really proud of this season. I think in ways, I think this was maybe our best season. I thought it was the first half of the season was almost like this sort of 8-10 episode cable arc of her being on the run and then coming back and trying to resituate in life and family and pregnancy and what that means and how to handle that and who she is. I think it was a successful season, and I think we had a lot of fun expanding the roles of some of the other characters with just all the other actors who were on the show and regulars, I think we really saw people step up in a really cool way. That was a real pleasure to watch happen.
Yeah, speaking of stepping up, we talk about Aram. He seemed to have a much more prominent role this year. Was that because the fans were connecting with him more that you guys decided to write more for Amir this season?
That's part of it, I guess. It's also just more, I think, and I really think it's sort of story driven. I think that he had a very specific perspective on Liz being, on the run, who she is, what they were going through. He has sort of this idealist. He's an idealist, he's a lover. He's a purist. He's so it's nice in a way to sort of put some difficult questions in his lap and see how he would handle them. And also, I think Amir's a great actor, and oftentimes I think that tech guy character on a show is, a little bit of comic relief and does some quirky stuff and does a lot of exposition, but he's a real actor. And what is unexpected and fun is that you can take him to places where he's on the floor crying, banging on the glass, trying to save Liz's life, or play scenes with Spader, which are super emotional. And I think oftentimes on some other shows, they don't get that opportunity. So, for us, it's kind of fun to do that and to take our characters, any of them, out of their role of being in the war room, being a cop, doing the sort of case of the week stuff, and then give them something personal to grapple with. And I think they've all really done a nice job with that. That's what's been different about this season than past seasons.
I agree 100%. And we polled the fans actually and asked them kind of like their one word for season 3. And a lot of what we heard was the word identity. It seemed like we were grappling with, who is Tom without Liz? Who is Red without Liz? Who is Liz without the FBI? Who is Amir in this world of trying to find out if he can actually be with Samar in this triangle love relationship with Wrestler?
Well, that's interesting. I think, certainly that's specific to this season, but I also think it's specific to the show. I think just from Raymond Reddington walking in and surrendering himself and saying, clearly Liz is important to him. There's sort of elements of that in terms of who is this man? Who is she? She's always had identity, sort of an identity crisis, which I'm fascinated by of, can she survive this? Why has she been chosen? She doesn't know where she's from. She was adopted. She's now dealing with a child, and how do you raise a kid when you don't even really know who you are? So I think those themes, I'm glad that you feel that. But I also think that's part and parcel to the core of the show in a way.
So we get introduced to the Cabal this season, and we're kind of left at the end of the director with Red, I guess, pseudo in charge of the Cabal in a way.
Wow, that was this season, wasn't it? The director. Wow, that seems like a long time ago. Yes, right.
So is the Cabal coming back into the mix then in season 4, since he has this kind of reins? We saw Laurel Hitchens again later in the season. Obviously he doesn't have any love for Laurel in any way, shape, or form, but it seems like the Cabal is almost a necessity for him at this point. Yeah,
I think, I don't know if the Cabal's coming back in a big way as a big bad, so much as I think it's part of the landscape of the show. I think it's just sort of, it's there, and it may be a resource, it may be an impediment to Red or the FBI, but I think it's sort of part of the landscape. How do I say it? Just sort of a condition of the way the show exists. And so if there's a good story that we have to tell, and there are others that are woven in that are sort of organic to what the show is that involve the Cabal, but they're not coming back in sort of a big bad trying to kill Red immediately kind of way. No.
And I think that expands right now as we talk about Halcyon and what we're going to do with the spinoff, because when Red kind of displayed that map on the table in front of Liz and said, here's all the players that are in position,
right,
it seems like you have other groups that might be coming out of the works here, season 4 and down the road.
Well, yeah, again, it's funny when you bring that up, the pins in the map. That's a condition of who he is and what he's fighting. So the reach and the power and how, I'm somewhat cynical and also not a conspiracy freak, but I don't think the Cabal is that far off, frankly. I think the way politics works, the way money works, the way elections are paid for, it's so dirty. I want to be an idealist and sort of just wave the flag, but I think the way that the show reflects what happens in politics and sort of the backroom conversations, I think is very real. And so yes, there is a huge reach that this organization has, and Reddington has inserted himself into it in a way, and I think that's the way he expands his power and part of his overarching sort of role in the show and what he's doing. Part of what he does, and we've seen him do, is he doesn't necessarily take down an enemy and then kill them, although he's happy to do that. He oftentimes gets them in a position where he can best them and then brings them into the fold and sort of expands his reach. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. But the Cabal is certainly not going anywhere and is a big part of the mythology of what the show is.
And as you said, expanding reach. Let's talk about Cooper this season a little bit, because they've had this past. They've worked together. He saves him from the judge back in season 1.
Yeah.
Has he gotten under Cooper's skin enough that Cooper now is part of that fold? He's like a Brimley or a Glenn because Cooper has stepped out of his bounds so much in this last season?
Yeah, it's weird, right? I mean, the FBI is almost kind of part of that, or at least this task force does things that, again, in a world that I think is very gray, that what's good for the greater good? At what point is breaking the law the right thing to do? You know, we saw them do that they abducted the director of the National Clandestine Services. They certainly crossed lines. Ressler was ready to let Reddington assassinate, a sort of mogul, a very wealthy and powerful man. He's ready to let somebody die. I think they're all really grappling with, again, you go back to what you're talking about, identity and just sort of what's right and what's wrong. It's funny to me, Reddington he tells great stories, and James plays him so well, and you want to hang out with the guy, you want to have a beer with the guy, or go get a cup of coffee, but he's a bad guy. I mean, he murders people all the time and is a criminal. It's sort of a weird seduction that you kind of want to forgive some of the things he does because you feel like it's for the right reason. And maybe it is, and I think that's something that Cooper certainly is. He was the bedrock of what's right and wrong, and he has really struggled with that, both in his relationship with Red and his relationship with his wife. And it's funny to me that Reddington sort of offering Cooper marital advice in the end, at the end of the season, work things out with Charlene. And so, yeah, I think he's definitely vulnerable to Red's sort of seductive way of doing business, and yet sees something positive in what Reddington does. He's well aware of how many criminals they've taken off the map because of the work they've done together.
So speaking of right and wrong, then, taking that a step further, this season seemed like you guys touched on a lot of very sensitive issues that are happening in the world today. The Djinn comes to mind. Taylor's episode with the fairy tale lady and special needs children. Is that coming from the room trying to state a point or find stories in the news and try to raise that as a topic like sometimes Hollywood movies tend to do?
Not really. I mean, we're not really a rip from the headlines sort of show, although sometimes that happens. We had an episode, The Front, I think it was in the second season, about the 5th episode, which was about an outbreak. And I remember we might have talked about this before, that we had written this show about an outbreak, and then there was the 3 or 4 days before it happened, there was this crazy outbreak happening all around the world, and people are being quarantined. And I remember driving to work thinking, wow, that's fortuitous. I certainly don't want an outbreak, but it is topical and makes it look like we're up to speed on what's happening in the world. I think it's more about finding a story that resonates personally with our characters. And sometimes those stories, we're trying to find some humanity in it. The Taylor's episode that you're talking about, Lady Ambrosia, that was a little tricky because these are parents who are getting rid of special needs kids who are really, it's a big challenge in some ways. And, I remember the network had some concern about that. I remember specifically having a conversation about, you can't take a kid and tie him to a stick and wrap him up in a cocoon and throw him down a well because he's special needs. And I say, I'm not saying anything bad about special needs kids. The parent's the one who's the creep in this situation. The parent is the bad guy, and so that's a very touchy subject. The Djinn, like you mentioned, is another one that has sort of this sexual identity, transgender, sort of forced sexual reassignment surgery that's a real thing. And I don't want to upset anybody, and I feel like I'm an incredibly open-minded person, but at the same time, there are places in the world where this happens, And it's screwed up, and to me, that's a bad, if you're forcing somebody to change their gender because you don't like their sexual preference, that is bottom of the bottom. And so we've tried to find bad guys that are not, it's less about being topical and of the moment, although that does happen to be topical at the moment, but it's more about trying to find some kind of humanity in why we should save these people, why they should be taken out, and not just about arms deals and drug dealers and the kinds of criminals we've seen before, but something that really resonates and has an emotional, heart to it. It's a long answer. I don't know if I'm answering that very well, but that's, at least with those two, that's kind of where my head goes.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great answer, because Aaron and I talk about it all the time, that your show goes so far to really bring to light sensitive issues in a way that someone can really take away and go, maybe I should look at that differently, or maybe the way I'm thinking about a criminal isn't the right way, because like in the case of Lady Ambrosia, it's the parents who are the criminal and what they're doing.
Right. Well, it's weird. And sometimes oftentimes in the Blacklist, we have a bad guy, and, there are a number of turns in it, and there's sort of a presenting story of what we think or the FBI thinks or Red thinks. And that's not the case. And as we go through those reveals, specifically, I remember with the sexual reassignment surgery one, that was a story that Vincent Angel, a great writer who came to us with that and said, I think there's something in this. And he broke out an episode, and it didn't quite work, and we couldn't figure it out, and we just put it on the shelf. And then a season later, Daniel Cerrone had this idea for the djinn, and somebody who would give you your sort of, make your dreams come true. And again, we were looking for that turn. We were looking for another twist and something that would give it an emotional component. And all of a sudden, the sort of tumblers fell into place. And it was like, oh, wait a minute. That thing that Vince had before felt like almost a full idea, but not quite. And it kind of works well with this other idea we're working on now. So oftentimes there are these pieces of ideas or things that you want to work that don't work, and then later they kind of come back to you in the fortuitous moment, or we're struggling to make them fit. But they sometimes fit together in a nice way, and that happened to be one of them.
And that's kind of split the season, right? You had those episodes that had this twist, this like, oh crap, didn't see that coming. Right at the end of the show, that kind of felt like the first half. The second half of the season, there's a ton of fan theories out there. Everybody, the Lissington Shippers, the Daddy Gators, you name it, the Mom Theory crew, right? They're following me to the grave, which got put to bed this year, apparently.
They got what this year?
I guess the Mom Theory is kind of put to bed, right, because of the Kate May episode. Or so people think.
Well, I'm curious, what are those theories? Like, what? I mean, there's a father theory. There's a romantic bent. There's what do you think the big two or three are?
There's the shippers. They want to see that Red and Liz get together at the end because there's this longing, this loving relationship between the two of them, which is why we had a great time on the podcast when you had Liz on her deathbed, and she was like, Raymond, I do love. And it was like nothing after that. So then we had people call in and
super emotional. Yeah.
Finish a sentence, right? And a lot of people are like, yeah, she loves you, right? But what is that love? Is that a parental love? Is that a together love? Is that a sexual love?
Right.
And then there's the group of people that are still to this day, he's got to be the father. It's like we put it to bed in season one. Red doesn't lie to Liz.
Is there another one beyond that? Like, I totally get that. Those are the big two. Completely aware of those. But what are the other theories?
The one we had back from, I think we started it in episode 2 of the podcast, was this imposter theory that Red isn't exactly the Raymond Reddington that used to work in the Navy, because there's clues, right? There's I gave mouth to mouth to the lifeguard and she belched up bratwurst or whatever it was. And I've never gone to a pool since. And you're like, but you were in the Navy. You have to be on the water, kind of thing. And then, of course, you have the burns on his back. You have the plastic surgery guy that he knew down in Miami.
Dr. Maltz.
There's just all these things. And then, what was it? Naomi, right, said, you look a little bit different.
I love that. That is... And that's why I like listening to the podcast and reading the comment sections. When people are picking up those kinds of details, those little, like you're saying, you can put it together an imposter theory by things that you're tracking back to season 1, or the father stuff with the scars on the back. That's why I love our audience so much. They're smart people. This is not, we bust our asses here, and we're here far too much. But it is hard working toward an end goal and trying not to get there too fast and to not break the mythology and to have all of the clues ultimately add up and yet take our time getting there is an incredibly difficult thing to do. I think one of the things that is so fun about the show is there can be these theories, and you could probably justify all of them. You know, I mean, you can walk away from at different parts in the show where they all add up. And that is a testament to our writers and how hard they try to paint within the lines to keep the story straight, but also fun to play with and have a conversation with the audience almost through the show as they're looking for clues and we're giving them clues and things are being picked up on. I mean, it's like almost an interactive experience of it's certainly nothing like a movie where you write it and you go away and a year and a half later it comes out and people see it or not. There is a conversation to it that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then we have, of course, the imposter theory for me tailed into what we're calling the mother theory, which was that the reason why Red isn't Liz's father is that Red is Liz's mother.
Love that. Killed
himself, but came back and decided, okay, I don't want to kill myself. I can just do this gender reassignment thing, or the twin sister thing like we had in Lord Baltimore.
I'm smiling. I love this. I mean, and by the way, we were just talking about, the gender reassignment and the djinn. And so, and by the way, even in 311 or 312 with Faux Fred, that was an imposter episode in a way where what I thought was fun about that, and I'm not sure ultimately how successful the episode was, but it was an interesting idea to have somebody come in and voice basically what you're talking about in imposter theory, where he walks in and says, yeah, this guy's been snowing you guys. He's not, all these stories don't add up that he's telling, and he's not who he says he is. And to live in that space for a while, I think is fun. And again, it's another one of those theories, like, I guess, Mother, that ultimately, here's what you can say about any of those. You can't deny it. You can't deny any of those, which I think that's fun.
Yeah, and everybody was like, oh, Troy, the Kate May episode, your mother theory's dead. And then one of the fans came back and they were like, well, remember, he was in an opium-induced kind of hangover state. He's remembering it as he remembers it. And then if he is the mother, then he's remembering both sides of the story. And I was like, yes, the mother theory's still alive.
Lives to fight another day. Well, you know what? The opium thing, what's funny about that is Red is always talking about stories, and I'm constantly sitting here with Eisendrath. We're Googling weird places and strange foods and trying to sort of have some wish fulfillment of what we would do if we were Raymond Reddington. And he's always got these stories. And then after Liz died, it felt like we should see him there. Like, he should be in an opium den in some haze and sort of, again, it's part of that personality of him that is not all that becoming, and he's a criminal and he does bad things. And that was sort of a nice moment to go there and see him. We weren't exactly graphic with it, but the idea that, he's got his vices and, that's one of them.
So let's talk about Kate May a little bit. I mean, this is the one that kind of sticks out as the probably best episode of the Blacklist, right? I think I pinged you and said the downloads for the podcast were off the charts like 2 days after it aired. Like better than anything. And I just have to wonder, it's Emmy writing, it's Emmy directed, it's Emmy acted. I mean, it stands out. Doesn't even have a number, right, to be on the Blacklist. It's a standalone. Was that episode in the plan kind of all along as far as how we would be introduced to that situation for Red with Katarina, or did it kind of come together through season 3 by itself?
Not at all in the plans. I'll tell you, it's an interesting story, and I can complain a lot about Sony and NBC, who are incredible partners, but at times, they can be difficult and they have strong opinions, and they should. When we knew that we were going to kill Liz and take her out of the series and see what the show would be without her, we had written 17 and 18, and we wrote 19, which became episode 20, where Red goes to visit Dom. And if you take Kate May out and just lift it out of the season, it plays seamlessly. Liz dies. The next episode, Red shows up at a house and meets Dom and goes through sort of a grieving process, and ultimately, through Iran, is asked to come back to the task force. And NBC is the one that said they got the script and they were like, guys, it feels too soon. It feels like Their instinct was to see Red on fire. They said, we want to see Red go out and murder people, and let's hear some Johnny Cash, and let's see him go crazy. And I got the spirit of that, and John and I hung up the phone, and we talked about it, and it felt totally wrong that he would go murder people. It felt like, well, we've seen him do that. I'd rather see him go to a different space where, how is he going to handle this? And so what we did was very quickly, we decided we'd been off for a little bit. And so we rarely have much time, but we had the opportunity there that we could flip the episodes. And so we shot them out of order. We shot episode 20 first and then episode 19. And what it allowed us to do was say, well, as long as we end with Reddington going off to see Dom, that's got to be the end point. We can do whatever we want between Liz dying and Red going to see Dom, which can be an all Spader sort of extravaganza. And let's just follow him for an episode. And that would be a really out of pattern, strange, unique way to, we wouldn't even have a blacklist. We didn't know what to call it. I didn't want to have a name, but NBC said, if you don't have a title, TiVos and DVRs and everything gets screwed up. It's looking for a name. And so we went with Cape May, and Dan Knopf wrote that script. And we went through a very serious process of breaking what the story would be. And it was a story that came together rather quickly because, again, like I said, we have little pieces of this mythology that we've set up that are out there and stories that we want to tell. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, wait, maybe this is the opportunity to tell that story. And what had happened to Katerina, whether it's a dream or however you want to interpret that, is something that we thought, oh, this is an opportunity. This is how we can bring it to life here. And it felt like a way to live with Red while he was mourning, and yet something would come out of it, which was him being propelled forward to go see Dom, and which we presented as sort of Red's father for the first half of that episode, but then midway through you realize, oh, wait, this isn't Red's father. This is Katerina's father who hates Red. So that's a very long-winded way of just saying it was something that was very fluid. It happened very quickly, and it sort of came out of the process of the network having an opinion about the pace of the season. And it did feel like we needed a breath there. And I don't know, it's funny that people really liked it. Some people hate it, I mean, you can't please everyone, but it definitely is out of pattern and unique and a special episode.
Which then gave us the one pivotal moment of the season when he's sitting there as Katerina, or in this case, Red, since Katerina really wasn't there, playing the piano. And he's talking about, I had to let him live because it would be like a mortal sin in order to leave a child in the world without. And then Katerina says her father, as cleverly were being shown scenes of Tom and Agnes over the backdrop. And you're going, wait a minute, is he talking about Tom or is he talking about Liz's father? And then you're like, holy crap, wait, he told Liz at the end of season 1 that her father was dead. He basically confirms the memory in the end of season 2. Like, what just happened? Is Papa Rostova really alive?
And then season 3, he shows up.
Exactly.
I mean, look, again, that's the sort of smart, drilled down perspective on viewing the show. Again, it's also just an emotional sort of parallel in that Tom as a father and Liz gone and this child who at that point in the show may never know her mother. And there's a weird parallel too. I mean, some people love Tom, some people hate him, but the idea that Red, of all the people that Red has to know or let live, because of this child, one feels very real, and he has to sort of swallow his hatred for Tom and accept it. And it's like, I love the moment at the end of 318 where Tom's so terrified. He's like, he doesn't know what to do. He's holding his baby. His wife's gone. What do I do? And I think he says, I don't know what to do. And Red just says, you'll figure it out. You'll learn quickly. And very matter of fact. And, I think there's some nice emotional parallels there that have been happening this season.
Which is a great segue into Aaron's question. So I'm going to go ahead and play this and have Aaron ask his question for you.
Sure.
Hey, John, it's Aaron from the Blacklist Exposed. Sorry I wasn't able to make it this time, but I'm looking forward to listening to the interview. I do want to say before I go into my question, thanks to you, writing staff, all the actors on the show. I really have loved this season. It's been a great season. not everything is always perfect in any TV show, but I think for 22, 23 episodes this year, you guys really knocked it out of the park for me and still make it my must-see television. NBC's still holding up that banner, must-see TV. It's still working for me. But I do have a question. So here is my question for you. Can we talk a little bit about the prominence of father figures in the show? So by my count, I've got Cooper, Sam, Alexander Kirk, and Red as potential, I'm using air quotes, potential father figures in Lizzie's life. Why is this concept so important to the Blacklist? And also, can we take Alexander Kirk at his word that he is, in fact, Lizzie's father? That's all I wanted to ask you. Thanks again for coming on the podcast. Hopefully on season 4, you'll come back and I'll be able to make it for that. I'd love to talk to you again. Thanks again for coming. Best of luck on season 4. Take care, Jon.
Very cool. So kind. Alexander Kirk, I think we have to take him at his word. Just first off, I think we have to believe him. There is a deep history there that we're going to be unraveling. And the thing that I think was successful about season 3, and I think that we have a really good footing on season 4, is that we started in a place of sort of a story turn that propelled us forward, that really pushed us forward, with Liz assassinating the Attorney General at the end of season 2, pushing us forward into her being on the run. Now she's been taken by Alexander Kirk. We don't know where Tom is. We don't know where Agnes is. We don't know what's going on with Red and Mr. Kaplan and the betrayal, and all the puzzle pieces are up in the air. So I think we've got a really nice story engine, and I think we have to take Alexander Kirk at his word. Father figure-wise, that's one of those things that has sort of evolved and has sort of, you start seeing in time. Certainly wasn't in the beginning like, okay, here's exactly what we're laying out. But that's one of those things that thematically, I think, as our point of view character, as Liz is trying to sort of find out who she is and find her way through this very dark and complex world, there are a number of people that are that sort of father figure to her. And maybe you and your listeners feel that yourself. I love my father, and clearly he's a father figure, but there are other people in my life who've come and gone and who were instrumental at certain times in my life. A teacher I can think of, a friend who helped me on my first one of my first movies, that become father figures. So again, there's the literal and then there's the figurative, and I think that it's just an interesting texture for us, or an interesting sandbox for us to play in. Cooper is the one that I think is kind of interesting. I mean, it's an interesting relationship that they have. And he's not perfect either, and he acknowledges that. But it was definitely fun to watch him go from marrying Liz to giving her eulogy.
Or even going from season 2 when he's like, if you pull that trigger, everything I wanted for you is like gone in an instant. And then that's right. The swing right back to, okay, now I forgive you and you're all good.
Well, and I'm trying to. I mean, everything that he believed in, he said everything. I can't remember what the exact line was, but it changes everything. And she can't go back. And he was terrified of that. And she can't go back. And as a result, he's kind of dragged into it with her. He hasn't let go, but it changed everything, not only for her, but for him in a significant way.
Which will be very interesting because she left last year, putting the task force at a hard place. Now we're transitioning into season 4. She's gone again, but faked her death. Yeah. Is the team going to come save her this time? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right?
Yeah, you know what? We've had, I specifically have a very short break. We aren't really ever gone, but we started yesterday, was our first day in the writer's room. And we're back. And one of the very early things we talked about, I don't know. I mean, how do people handle this? What are their, Aram, who can forgive anybody? Does he forgive her? Wrestler? How does he feel about it? And Cooper and Samar. I mean, it's a very tough situation. We put her in a tough situation. And people are sometimes hard on Liz. How come she doesn't listen to Red? How come she doesn't, she's finding her way through it. And we're going to make it harder for her, and I hope that we can write her in a smart way. But I also hope that we can give the other characters real and justifiable responses to what's happened, because it is significant. And I think our team is going to have a very hard time grappling with this. And by the way, Red, what's his perspective on it? Is he angry? Is he heartbroken? Is he accepting? Is he The father figure part, the father figure would have to forgive. The partner, the shipper, may not forgive, or may. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's a very complex web that of emotion, just emotionally speaking, that we're going to be unpacking. While geographically, physically, everything's thrown up in the air too. Like, is she in danger? Is this baby? What's happening with this baby? There's a lot of good questions there too. And
before he can forgive Liz, he's got to think about how does he forgive, if he even does, Mr. Kaplan, right? Kate.
Well, that is right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that is a very egregious betrayal. And I think Mr. Kaplan and Dembe are two of the closest people to Red. And the secrets that I know about who he ultimately is and where he's going, they know as well. There aren't a lot of people who know that. That's going to be interesting. I don't know. We've got a number of options on where that goes, and we were talking about it yesterday, and it's going to be fun. I can tell you that.
That was Tori's question, was before Mr. Kaplan gets quote-unquote capped, are we going to see like the backstory we got from Dembe with the Mombasa cartel? Will we get to see a Kaplan backstory or how Red and Kate met?
That's funny. I half jokingly say, although I think it would be fascinating, in this whole spin-off world, I'd love to see the cable version of Mr. Kaplan, the origin story, like what they did with Better Call Saul to Breaking Bad. She's a fascinating character. I think she is complex and has secrets, and I would love to see this. Not the teaser, but the series. That would be a reach, but there's great story there, and it's a good idea, to see that. Yeah, that is definitely a possibility.
So let's talk spinoff then. So you have this kind of in the back of your mind. I believe it even started back almost late season 1, early season 2 of what could you do with Tom's character, and could this thing happen? Much like the comic book, and then the comic book successful, so then the spinoff starts to get some steam. So we're hearing 8 episodes.
Right. So I believe it's 8 episodes. Yes, that's what I've been told.
And based on that, then the question that we had at the end of the episode was, Liz was already gone. Tom was there with the baby when the bounty hunter comes and hits him over the head.
Mm-hmm.
Does Kirk even have Tom and the baby? Do we explore that in season 4, or does that branch him right to the spinoff immediately?
Well, I'll tell you, the good news is it's a mid-season show. So if they had picked it up for September, we would have been royally screwed because we have story to tell. We have this story here. I mean, look, Tom can't go and accept Scotty Hargrave's offer to work and leave Liz and the kid and this whole mess. So there is story that we have to unpack, and I think that's probably going to be a significant part of the front part of the season. How do we put this back together? Can we put it back together? So the spinoff wouldn't be. It's a mid-season show, and again, the Tom character. Again, strong opinions, love and hate. I see all kinds of thoughts about it. I think, look, in the pilot. In the original incarnation of the pilot, before it was even written, as it was being pitched, Tom died. He died in a car wreck that Red caused. We scaled that back to him being stabbed. So he died in the pilot. I think episode 17, he died. And we decided, let's wait. That's interesting. But he's a weird character because he's not a cop, and he's not really her husband anymore. So finding where he exists in the landscape of the show is sometimes hard. She's not going home to him and making pancakes and hanging out in Babyville, and we're not really ever interested in doing that. And then at the same time, he's not a cop, and he doesn't work for the task force. He's a criminal, and yet there's a little bit of a redemption story there going on. So it does feel like a natural sort of place for him to maybe go and explore in another show that's sort of a parallel universe, same DNA. And yet it is odd that when you think about him, he doesn't know where he's from. He has, like Liz, he has a lot of the same questions. So it's not going to be something that's a spinoff in the terms of we put the name of a different city after it and it's sort of the same thing. I hope it feels like a show that stands on its own. You could never have seen the Blacklist before and should be able to tune in and watch this. And likewise, you could never look at the spinoff and the Blacklist will still stand on its own.
Which I think was a great way to introduce it and come out and say right away that, yes, Now, granted, Red's a criminal, so we always have to take everything everybody says with a grain of salt.
Right.
But we're assuming that Scotty is the mother because it's been in the NBC press releases and everything. So for him to know that Scotty's the mom, but for Scotty not to know, you have Tom, the international man of mystery, all these different personalities,
right,
and the fact that he can use all of those to throw mom off the scent. I mean, what a great premise that's going to be. Well,
that is one of the things that's an example of that when I say we're not trying to just, as much as it has clear similarities, it is not. Famke Janssen is not James Spader, as she has her own set of things that she does really well. Ryan is not Megan. To try to just duplicate the show would be a mistake. And so that, the idea of revealing that she is his mother right up front, why not? Let's just get that out there. And very quickly try to draw, the comparisons of how they're different, the two shows. So there's a couple of ways in which we did that. And I think that show hopefully is maybe a little more fun, maybe a little more sexy, a little more capery. It's probably a spy show, whereas this is a crime drama. So they're very different animals, I think.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. So mid-season, does that mean you guys get a break? You'll get it's kind of like the Agent Carter, you'll get it in the middle, or are you guys going to have them on simultaneously in the spring?
We don't know yet. We're waiting to find out. NBC's still sort of scheduling things. All we know is that it won't be in the first 8. We have a little time just to focus on Blacklist here and get that on its feet.
All right, rapid fire in our last 5 minutes here. Hanging chads that are still sitting out there.
Hanging chad.
Yeah, hanging chads. Number 1.
Love it.
Are we going to get more eccentric Blacklisters like season 1?
More eccentric. Well, I hope so. I mean, I love that. We love the Case of the Week show. And it's funny. I've seen some people say that we've totally blown that up and don't do that. And yet I still think that's a sort of foundational part of what the show is. I mean, I think we're going to continue to do cases and baddies that are both dangerous and weird and specific. Yeah, I'm curious what it was about season 1 in those bad guys that stands out that you think is different. I mean, I guess they're a little less serialized maybe in the way the stories are told.
That probably was what people are thinking about, yeah, because the first half of season 3, it was like with the Djinn and some of these other ones, you're like, wow, that's very season 1. We said a lot of the time, it's very right. Season 1 like. I think that people, and going back to, of course, 10 o'clock on Thursday night, maybe you have that opportunity right. to do more stew makers and soapy beard giants in the woods.
I think that's right. I think, again, I think there's an ebb and a flow to the season. I think it's sort of, at times we get a little more sort of standalone in episodes that there's not as big of an urgency. I mean, you kind of see a pattern of the show. By the time we're ramping up to a cliffhanger or something big at the end of the season, the episodes start becoming much more serialized, almost hyper-serialized for us. At other points, it's, where Red is maybe working a case or has his agenda, it's okay to step off and just do Crispin Crandall or the Djinn or the Scimitar, which is apparently not connected to anything. So I think that's a little bit of an ebb and a flow of how serialized the show is, which I think is one of the things that makes it unique.
Which is funny that you say that, because we were like, those episodes are the one that has all the clues, right? Because that's when we learned about the fugochemo and the tetrodotoxin, and we're like, okay, tetrodotoxin, you put that in Liz, that fakes her death. They used it on Chuck. This is exactly how she faked her death. And everybody's like, we got it. We solved it. Red's family. So if we take the Red as not Liz's father comment to heart, then we heard a lot about Red's family in season 1. Are we getting back into anything about Red's family? The ballet, the music box, any of that stuff in season 4?
Well, I think we will. I think that's a fine balance, because I think at times the show had maybe in season 2 become too focused on the past and is he or isn't he? And I think ultimately, yes, that is a key question, but the relationship between the two of them, how they move forward from this, is really what is more important than anything. And yes, in a way, through Alexander Kirk, Red is going to be forced to face some truths about the past that he had not expected to have to answer to. So I do think we've got some really nice reveals there that are going to go to the bedrock of what the show is.
And final one here, Wendy said, given the fact that we have Kirk with the blood issue that we've seen in the 2 episodes he was in, does the warrior gene from the Dr. Linus Creel episode come back into play at all? Does Liz have that gene, and is that important to the story?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, the warrior gene. Wow. Was that season 3? That was season 2. When was the warrior gene? I remember that was the doctor. Wow. Yeah, I love that. I think, look, the warrior gene goes to the heart of Liz, and again, what we started talking about, identity. Who is she, and is she in a way? There's a struggle. Sounds cheesy saying it, but for her soul, like, can she survive this? Can she come out a good person? Is she becoming more and more like Reddington? And look, the warrior gene is certainly part of that, and going on the run is certainly part of that. She's taking big steps that could potentially hurt the people closest to her. That fight, I think the warrior gene falls into that category where who is she going to become? There's only so much Red can do for her, and part of it is, goes back to what Cooper said. Once you pull that trigger, everything changes. And so she's on a roller coaster of a ride, and I think, warrior gene. I don't know.
Little nuggets for you to keep in the back of your mind, right?
I got a lot of things rattling around in my mind. Look, 4 is going to be great. We've got a lot of fun stuff, and again, like I said, we try to be flexible with the storytelling. Certain things we try to embrace as they come up. Certain things are signposts that we know we're going to hit. It's always a little bit of a balance of that, but I know just in our early conversations and in knowing kind of where we're, a couple of the big turns, I think people are going to be really surprised.
Well, it's a great staff, and the network is obviously behind you. Sony's behind you, so we're excited to see season 4 in the fall, and of course, Redemption when it comes out mid next year in 2017.
Well, I appreciate it. And look, if I can say anything to your fans and the people listening, and just thank you, because it is such a blessing. I mean it. Like, to be able to write this stuff, I've spent plenty of time with nobody watching and on other projects. And this is so cool to be able to, again, have that sort of conversation. And there's no show without everyone tuning in and watching it and caring so passionately about it. So we in the writer's room, that means a lot to us. So thank you.
Thanks, Jon. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Be well.
Okay, what'd you guys think? I hope you enjoyed that. Troy, now that we are back, and like I said, I actually had not listened to it ahead of time, right? So I wanted to be fresh. I wanted it to be fresh. And also, when you do podcasts, you kind of have to listen to edited audio unless you're the one editing it, because otherwise you'll find all the things you want edited. It's really annoying anal thing that us podcasters do. What did we learn about the spinoff?
What we learned about the spinoff is that it will be 8 episodes, and it will be mid-season, and we learned that there is a lot of story to tell around Tom and the baby and Liz, so we will see Tom in the first half of season 4.
Now, is the impression that you got the same as the impression that I got, where it's going to be almost like ABC, how they did it with Agent Carter, where it's either going to be fill in the gaps of the Blacklist like throughout the season, or it's going to be capping the season off or something?
I certainly hope it's a in-between show like Agent Carter was for Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC, or Gallivant was for Once Upon a Time. I think that makes the most sense scheduling-wise from a 39-week television season perspective, if they're going to go with a full 22 again for the Blacklist. They could do them at the same time because, as Jon mentioned on the interview, you can pick up Redemption as if you've never seen the Blacklist and thoroughly enjoy the show, and you could go back to the Blacklist and not have to see any of Redemption and still enjoy the Blacklist. So it is going to be its own standalone thing in the same universe, but I think it'll be interesting how the schedules all play out because, again, mid-season from a television perspective is so far away and depends on how things actually do on the network in the fall to see where they have holes when they need them.
Now, what do you think will happen if that does well? Are they going to make it a full series, you think?
That's a really great question. So, I mean, if people enjoy
probably
it...
one you should have asked, huh? Oh, yeah.
Well, it's so early, right?
Walter Cronkite, you are not.
Granted, I think that they want to intend to go forward with more episodes of the Tom Keene story if they can, but again, it's a matter of, are people going to gravitate towards it? It is the spinoff, so it's the second show, and people may gravitate towards it. People might not gravitate towards it, and I think the real question is, how do they market it to non-Blacklist fandom to get new people to watch the series? Because that is how they're going to make that show successful, because if it's just Blacklist fandom coming across, you only have about 10 million people to pull from, and they might not have time for 2 shows if it's on at the same time.
And one thing I want to
They may even want to wait and watch all 8 altogether and binge it.
It's possible. It's possible. But if it does well, I would think that they would want to make it its own thing. You know what I mean? And make it a full spinoff. But I'm sure that it's going to depend on what the ratings are, right? One thing I want to note that I didn't know when we first came back on the interview is how grateful we are for Jon to take time out and talk with us for such a long period of time and so candidly. You know, you get I think if you've been involved in the entertainment world or you've dealt with it for any length of time, you kind of become accustomed. And for my podcast, The Hollywood Outsider, when we've interviewed, I'm real big on interviewing directors. I've never been really an actor interviewer just because I really love the craft, and I've talked about that. I love the behind the scenes stuff. So when you talk to directors and producers, a lot of the responses are very canned and very almost generic. I hate to say that because, I mean, you got to remember that a lot of times they're doing like 50, 60 interviews a day. So, if you don't have prepared answers, it can become a problem for the publicist if they say the wrong thing. You know, like it was for Jon when he accidentally broke that they were renewed for season 4. You know, he didn't mean to cause a ruffle, but because he said something off the cuff, it caused a little bit of a ruffle for them. I am extremely impressed with him, not only because he is in the position that he is, where he's a showrunner and he's candid, but that he's continued even after that happened where the news broke and he didn't mean it to. He came back and he's just as candid in this interview. He's very, very open to fans' theories. He's very respectful of fans. He just seems very involved in the fan community and very appreciative and very grateful for everything that fans do. And I can tell you from the many that I've talked to, easily the most responsive person to the fan community that's of a showrunner that I've ever met. And I say that fully honestly, not just because we're doing a Blacklist podcast. I've talked to many, and several very directly, and Jon just seems like a guy who really, really gets it. Like he gets how the medium is changing. He gets how fans and the fan community and the vocalness of fan communities are becoming the most important part, and he appreciates that. And I don't see that a lot with TV shows. You see it a lot with like really, really genre-oriented shows, like stuff on the CW and very, very small audiences. I'm not knocking those shows at all. I'm just saying shows that are trying to break out. His show is huge. You know, it's like one of the biggest shows on NBC. He doesn't have to do that. And, you know, and I'm sure he has a ton of things that he needs to do to keep his show on schedule, and he's got a lot of meetings. And yet he still takes the time to do that, and he's doing it not to make us happy, but for you guys. And it's just extremely impressive, and I think we should always note that when we get done. Not to kiss Jon's ass, but because I really do appreciate it, and I do respect him as a creator.
Yeah, and personally, we can just say thank you because we actually had that interview scheduled a couple different times, and we had to move it a couple different times because of things that were happening, both with the spinoff. They actually, like Jon mentioned, just started meeting in the writer's room for season 4 already. And so we had to move it a couple times, and Jon even apologized for moving the interview. And I thought, how cool is that? I mean, he's way more important than I am, obviously. And the fact that he's
you're important to somebody, Troy. I don't know who they are, but yeah. No, I talked to her yesterday, and she did not say that. No. But she said Team Aaron.
Yeah, it just shows you how, in touch with all of us, the fandom that they are, that, he took the time to just say, hey, I'm sorry about the time mix up and everything. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. So congratulations on the show, and congratulations to you on the interview. I really wish I could have been there, but I couldn't. I definitely would have asked those questions. You know what I'm saying?
You get the next one.
No, we both do it. If he comes back, when he comes back, then we both do it. You've actually, isn't it like one of your dreams to talk to Jon Eisendrath?
Long-term goal. That is one of my goals.
You're such a little squee fan or you're like, can we talk about Alias for an hour?
I just wanted to come back.
Alias the movie. I'm waiting for that to happen. I think it will happen at some point.
I mean, come on. They already went Taken or Training Day and Minority Report and what's the other one that's Lethal Weapons coming out this fall?
Oh, everything. Like all TV shows are being remade, or movies are being remade as TV shows now.
So why can't TV shows be made into movies? That's what I'm saying.
They have been for years, man.
I know.
For years.
But good
I do want to point off, point out he did answer my question, which I was surprised he did answer it, but he said you do have to take Alexander Kirk at his word that he is her father. But he also said it in a way that, us being obsessive fans would be like, well, you could take that a different way. Maybe he doesn't know he's not the father. How did you take it?
I took it as, in order for the story to work that we're going to tell, you have to believe, just like Spader or Reddington had to believe that Liz was dead. I think for the story to work, you have to believe Kirk is the dad until he's not.
Do you think he's the dad?
I don't know. The whole Red doesn't like a Liz thing just still keeps sitting in the back of my head.
Well, he might have thought he was dead.
Right.
I'm still claiming that. I think Red thought he was, but then again, he knew exactly who Alexander Kirk was, so now we got the confusion on that. I don't know.
Yep.
We'll find out. But
very interesting.
If it's proven, remember, if it's proven that he lied to her about anything, it means he could have lied to her about anything.
Everything. Can't trust me. I'm a criminal.
We're going to go and talk about what listeners are looking forward to for the next season. But what do you want to see? Season 4, what do you want to see?
Season 4, I definitely do not want to see Reddington going after Liz and trying to find Liz. I think somebody else going to find Liz would be more interesting, like Tom. Maybe Tom and Samar team up together. That would be interesting. I think that in the Red side of the storyline, I think for the first part of season 4, I want to see him get more into the Kirk side of things, but from afar through his network, and maybe how his network and Kirk's network are tied together to flesh out more of that story from that perspective, which gets us into the backstory of how he knew Kirk all that long time ago.
All right. Anything else that you want to see?
I think the big things for me in season 4 are just, I want to see, like you said, like creepy blacklisters, things that'll actually make the show kind of interesting on a week-by-week basis, more than just the genre and the mythology, because that obviously holds the show together. But just something that, like, oh, I want to go talk, like the next morning or when we come on the podcast, be like, man, that was awesome. Not just, oh, yeah, we got this answer, and we're going to move into this answer kind of thing. So
you want more procedural elements.
A little bit more. I'm not a big fan of the one-and-done kind of thing, even though those were actually the most enjoyable X-Files when the X-Files returned for the 6 episodes. But yeah, I want to see something that captivates me each and every week, but adds to the mythology as it goes along. Veronica Mars style.
Oh, great. Now I miss Veronica Mars again. Thanks a lot.
But Kristen Bell's coming back in the fall.
Yeah, but it's not in Veronica Mars, so
it's still cute and fun.
I want to see the father storyline put to bed. I really do. In terms of, is Alexander Kirk her father? I really hope he is. We can put that aspect to bed. I think we're at the point.
So you want so to clarify, you want the Kirk is or is not put to bed by the time the 8 episodes are done in the first part of the season.
Yes,
but do you want the entire who is the father put to bed?
No. Well, I was trying to say that, but you cut me off. You like to do that.
I do.
So you just want to take over for me? Just tell me what I want to see. Go ahead.
I just want to make it shorter for you. Get to the point.
Man, piss on you. All right. What I want to see is I want to see Alexander Kirk. For sure. We know if he's the father or not. If Maury has to come in, seriously, do it. That's fine. I don't want to have an ongoing thing that drags out. I would actually like it put to bed that he is her father, so that aspect of the story can be put to bed. I think we're at the point in the show's history where you need to completely answer definitively at least 1 or 2 questions. You can do it and ask other questions on other aspects, but that one definitely, I think, needs to be answered. Is her father dead 100% for sure, or is Kirk her father 100% for sure? Just to solve that dilemma. Now, if you can't do that because maybe Red's still the father, okay, fair enough, but that's what I'm hoping for. I want Aram to do a playlist for Samar. I want that. I want them to either
plays it on his boombox.
Oh man, he's like outside her window, just holding it up, and she's like, "What's a boombox? It's 2016. It's weird." Yeah, something like that. Or we finally asked her out, and he gives her a playlist. I think that would be #AramDorable. I would love to see wrestlers' hair get messed up. Not by Samar.
Maybe just a new haircut, new hairstyle altogether.
No, I don't want a new hairstyle. I love that his hair doesn't move. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's almost like a bulletproof vest. I think it's a thing to behold. And his hair care products are fantastic. You should start doing ads for hair care products, really. I would love to see that. But I would love to see his hair get just ruffled up and get him in some more action scenes because he's very sleek and he runs really cool in a suit. want more Dembe stuff, want more, Dembe ass kicking. I would also like finally to get the backstory of Kaplan. I think that's been hinted at several times, but we've never gotten anything on it. I would really like to see who is Kaplan as a character, as more than just Red's side help, or whatever.
And the way Jon made it sound in the interview, that could be a possibility.
Yeah, could be, and I definitely want to see that. And man, I would really, really, really like to see less Liz going back and forth on if she should be part of Red's world.
Yes,
I want her to accept it and move forward.
No more yo-yo.
Yeah, no more yo-yo. And I do think it's not as bad as some people have alluded to, because I do think that it is part of the character and it makes sense to me. But I do think at some point, either you're in or you're out. Either you're accepting that this is part of the world I have to deal with and I'm going to deal with it, or you don't. But the half in and out, whiffle waffle, that needs to be put to bed too.
Would be kind of fun, actually, because now that she actually faked her death and got away with it, when she did say the Red, I do love, I almost want to see bitchy Liz.
Just the rest of the show?
Yeah, it's totally like just totally snark off at him all the time, like a daughter would to a father. I'm not listening to you.
Well, the thing is if it is like a father-daughter thing, and I'm not closing the door on anybody, so shippers, I'm not closing that door on you. I'm just saying, if it is a father-daughter thing, daughters have loving conversations with their dad too. And they do mouth off, and then they're like fine a day later. That's just how those relationships are. I've literally been in a fight with my daughter, gotten a screaming match, and then 20 minutes we're like, you want to get waffles? So that is the relationship.
I think I was part of that screaming match.
Probably.
Do you believe she said this, Troy? Oh my goodness.
It's pretty funny. Now, let's talk about what our listeners want to see in season 4.
Julie wants more info on the night of the fire. Don't we all?
Mm-hmm.
The real info, not some fake memory messed up Xerox copy thing.
I got a feeling you're not going to get everything for a while.
No.
Yeah. Barbara wants to know why Red loves Liz so much. Well, don't we all?
That's right. Jenny wants more Dom, especially with Lizzie and Agnes.
That's a good point. I would love to see a scene where they bring Brian Dennehy back, because I love the Dennehy, and you have an Agnes and Liz finally get to meet Grandpa. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be cool.
It would be cool. Oh, man, he'd play it up. It'd be so emotional. I'd cry.
Of course, that assumes that Red and Liz reconcile.
Not necessarily. I mean, he could hook him up as maybe that's how he's buying his way back into her life.
Oh, it could be. Be a great way to play it.
It's going to be, I mean, everybody's saying, like, is Lizzie going to trust Red? But can Red trust Liz? I mean, at this point, all he sees is somebody that betrayed him horribly.
Right.
People forget that. Becky wants to know why Red and Kate are close. That's a good one. I'd like to know that, too.
I do, too. Leslie wants Red to meet someone romantically.
There's a lot of shippers that think he already has. Just saying.
There's also a lot of other women he's kissed along the way.
Yeah.
Scientist lady, giraffe glass lady.
Play, gotta play. I wonder if that one lady will come back. What was the one lady who's
Naomi?
Hospitalized now?
Oh,
can't remember her name. I'm sorry.
The one that he ended up killing Alistair Pitt for.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that one. Suzanne wants to see the imposter theory come true. So she just wants her theory to come true. She's like, I want to be proven right.
Right. Barbara wants to see the backstory on Red and Cooper's relationship.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool, especially after the finale.
That would be cool. Maybe they can splice some footage from the actors and earlier stuff. Make it look like a real scene. That'd be cool. Alexander wants to see the Kaplan backstory.
Don't we all?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, from that interview, I would really love to see the 8-episode Cable Arc spinoff that Jon was talking about. That would be really cool.
That would be cool.
Betsy wants to see a story on how and why Red knows that the Hargraves are Tom's parents.
Well, I mean, he did say that they were friends.
Right, but why were they friends?
Backstory.
How did they get together and become friends and work together and that sort of stuff?
That's a good point. I wonder if Jane Spader would do a cameo or like an appearance on that show.
Maybe.
Because it is the Blacklist colon.
Right. It
Redemption.
is the same universe. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Linda wants to see some mutual trust between Red and Liz and why Red gave up on, quote unquote, our government. Yeah, our government.
Right. Not his government, our government.
I know, because you've got some weird thing that he's not from here.
Because Steven also wants to know why Red doesn't consider America his country.
Same reason a lot of us are starting not to. Francis wants Dembe to meet a special lady.
Yeah.
And Aram can make him a playlist.
There you go. Chris just wants the spinoff to be great, so Tom stays away from the Blacklist.
Ouch.
Sorry to burst your bubble, Chris. He'll be back in season 4 to start it.
He's coming back. I got a feeling this is just going to be a side gig for him. Arkansas, is that right?
Cool
That's
name.
the name?
Yeah.
Arkansas? Wow, you're named after a state? Wants to know why Red went criminal. I do too. I would like a little bit more on that backstory.
Unless he was always a criminal from the get-go. Stealing from the petty officers lounge and everything on the boat.
Didn't seem like it. It seems like he was once an honorable man because he does respect honorable men.
This is true. Chuck wants to know if they will counterattack the Cabal now that it has been weakened.
And Barbara wants to know more about his relationship to Dom. I think that would be a lot more telling about the relationship to Liz, too. So, yeah.
Agree.
Definitely. Okay, what do people want from the podcast in season 4, Troy?
Andrew and Betsy want more Red's rhetoric.
So what does that mean? Like every James Spader monologue?
Pretty much.
Throw down there? All right. Wendy and Barbara love the show as is, but would love maybe a behind the scenes from the writer's room comment or nugget about that week's episode. You know, that would be cool. I think we've gotten introductions from the writers, and I guess we can probably float it by their publicist, by John and his crew, and see if they'd be interested in doing that.
Yeah, just something small. Like, hey, did you guys notice this in the episode? You should be paying attention to that. Just even something that simple would be great.
Yep, that would be cool.
Andrew also wants more of Troy's questions, but less of Troy's crazy theories.
Yeah, that means put the mom theory to bed, which apparently John does not think should be put to bed.
Correct.
Please enlighten us on why that is.
He just said that any possible theory is possible because of the way the show is written, because, again, it depends on how you take what was said and how you can manipulate it into your theory. So he just said that any theory is still possible at this point.
And he refuses to put a nail in that coffin.
Because it's the right answer.
Do you really still believe that?
I don't know, man. That Cape May episode really threw me for a loop.
I'm telling you, one thing I will say, if you go back and rewatch it, when you said that theory's dead, and I said, well, it's maybe not dead. If you rewatch Cape May, it could be that he's seeing everything as himself.
Right.
He's just reliving, he's basically reliving that in his own head about his own life, what happened to him. Yeah, it's Katerina.
Yep.
So technically, that insane, ridiculous, almost insulting to the intelligence theory is plausible.
I think it's harder because then you have, if you buy into the theory, then it's Katerina looking through her own stuff in front of her own dad. And how do you play that straight face to not crumple at that point? Because you might not have seen Dom in a long time. That's where I think the theory kind of falls apart a little bit.
Well, then it would also work because my daughter's dead, because maybe he's not a fan of sex changes.
Possible.
He's old school. I mean, yeah, it could work. God, son of a bitch. The more I'm talking about, the more irritated I'm getting. All right. So
what do we have here?
I don't like that. It is plausible. I don't like it. And do you think is there any theory you think is off the table?
I still say that him as Liz's father is off the table.
Because they've done enough to establish not the case.
Correct.
I would agree with that.
Because he said he said, your father's dead. She said, I shot my father. Again, going back to my conversation when I said that, in Alias, Sydney said, hi, mom, or mom. And because it came from the protagonist, then you have to believe it. So the fact that she said, I shot my father, at least that's how she remembers it. I think you have to believe that the father's dead at that point, too.
All right. And also, you want to mention the comic book? It's got more issues coming out?
Yes. Issue 5, the final issue of The Arsonist, is out June 1st. That is the week that you were listening to this podcast, most likely. So make sure you pick up issue 5 or pick up all the issues before that so that you can read The Arsonist as a whole, because we may, or at least me, might jump on and actually just share what we thought about that second Blacklister for the comic book series.
So what do you think, what are you going to be doing this summer? For people that are listening, they still want to catch up with Troy Heinrichs and his life. I can't imagine it's very interesting, but,
Vacation. Seriously. Actually, we'll be preparing for the Packers Fan podcast in the fall because football season obviously starts mid-July.
Go Pack, go!
We'll only have about a month and a half off before football podcasting starts up. Just doing some theme park traveling, doing some stuff in downtown Chicago in July. So I think it'll be just a fun 2 months of summer because school starts early. They're making us go back August 15th for the kiddos.
Oh, man.
It's gonna be
they don't
hot.
even give you a break anymore, do they?
Well, we're going to get out before Memorial Day.
Oh.
So we're going to get out earlier to start earlier. So it's just one short summer this summer.
Very cool. And you probably still pop on a couple episodes of Remake This Movie Right, I hope?
Absolutely.
Which is at remakethismovieright.com. It's part of the Hollywood Outsider, and I'll be doing that podcast all summer, the Hollywood Outsider and Remake This Movie Right. And we will definitely be back in the fall. We are doing season 4 of The Blacklist, and it seems like the way that the episodes are scattered will probably be just riding right along with the Blacklist train, right, with Redemption.
Yeah, and if we do Redemption, most likely it'll probably be in this same feed because it's still The Blacklist. So we'll just keep it as The Blacklist Exposed, and we'll talk about Redemption either as a side part to this conversation or as its own thing, depending on when it airs.
Yeah, so that'd be pretty cool. So we'll be able to cover that as well. Some people were asking where we're going to do that. I think it seems like if it's for the 8 episodes, we'll probably do that. If it goes to more, like it comes back and does 13 and 22, it would have to be broken off, and then we look at it then. But I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, at least for the first year.
Yeah, we should be good. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm really curious how they're going to blend that with the show.
I'm just excited because it'll, like John was saying, one's a criminal drama and one's a kind of political heist type thing. So it'll be interesting to see the two different dynamics.
Did you mention to John that I really wanted to talk to Famke?
I did not. You were supposed to record your own questions. I played your question.
Oh my God, that's true. I totally missed my window. John, if you're listening to this, I really want to talk to Famke. Please make a boy's dream come true. I'm so pathetic. Yeah, that'll be cool.
It is about Pinocchio, apparently, on the Tom side. So
I'm looking forward to that show.
Wish upon a star.
And we don't know any indication of what's going to happen with Agnes. Is she going to be part of the redemption thing too, I assume? Or
no, more story to tell. Got to unpack the first part of 4 first. And
I was really hoping we just have everything spoiled and, life would be good. We'd be like those Game of Thrones readers for like the first few seasons where we just knew everything was going to happen.
Well, I could say, for them being back only about a day in the writer's room and what they're already blocking out, John gave us a bunch of clues and a bunch of hints already. So
Excellent. I can't wait. All right, guys, I think it's going to do it for this season of The Blacklist Exposed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We might have a couple special episodes over the summer. So just
keep checking.
Keep checking.
And very important, if you are not subscribed, be sure to subscribe. And we're going to tell you exactly how here in a second. But first, remember to follow us on Twitter at The Blacklist GSM. That's at The Blacklist GSM. We live tweet during the East Coast feed, and we use the show's hashtag, The Blacklist. We also have a Facebook group. Just search for The Blacklist Exposed and join us for the fun. And there's also the Redemption group, too, right? The Blacklist Exposed Redemption.
Correct.
So there's 2 groups now.
Yes. And once again, vote every single day. Noodle.m as in Molly. Noodle.mx/podcast awards. Make sure you vote for every show on that page to support not only us, but our friends as well that are also fellow blacklisters. And we'd greatly appreciate the support. Again, every single day for the next 2 weeks, starting May 29th, noodle.mx/podcast awards.
I'll probably have a post at the HollywoodOutsider.com too. So if that's easier for you, either one of those.
And we'll also have links right here in the show notes for this episode number 58 of The Blacklist Exposed.
Okay, and we may have a few surprise podcasts during the summer. You never know. So please make sure you subscribe to the podcast in iTunes or in Google Play Music, or download our app for iOS and Android, powered by Spreaker.
And remember, you can get all the intel and analysis for any podcast, now including Season 1, by visiting theblacklistexposed.com. As you do your 67-episode rewatch this summer, FYI, listener Tori is already done with Season 1. So catch up, people.
Is she really already done with it?
Already done with Season 1.
Man, you are a trooper.
Power watcher.
That is getting some things done. I'm still trying to catch up with the first season of Flash. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this podcast. So it's time to close her up. I hope everybody has a wonderful summer. It's been a great season of television, and it's been a hell of a lot of fun talking to all of you guys on Facebook, on Twitter, and really interacting, making friendships, making relationships. It's been fantastic. We love all of you, and we do appreciate, even when you don't agree with us, we do appreciate you being there for us and supporting the show, even when you're telling us how wrong we are. Because if we're not right, if Troy's not right, he needs to know. It's very important.
Absolutely.
So, thanks for all your support.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Until next time, I'm Agent Troy Heinritz. That's at Troy Heinritz on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinritz.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, as well as Remake This Movie Right. We are available at thehollywoodoutsiders.com or on Twitter at H_outsider. Be sure to subscribe, download the app, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of
the Blacklist.
The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.